My name is Brianna Carter. I'm 30 years old, and I just walked out of the most expensive, emotionally loaded vacation of my life 3 days early without saying goodbye. I'm not proud of that sentence, but I need to tell you how I got there, because this isn't a story about a ruined vacation. It's a story about the price of trying to be the glue that holds a broken family together, and what happens when the glue finally melts. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. I love seeing that we're all tuning in from different corners of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. So, here's the setting. A 5-day girls' trip to Scottsdale, Arizona. Desert Oasis Resort and Spa. Infinity pool. Daily yoga. Southwest-inspired architecture that looks like it was plucked from Pinterest. It was all for Mom's 60th birthday. My gift to her. I saved nearly $9 grand from my end-of-year bonus. Booked everything months in advance, upgraded our flights to Comfort Plus, arranged a balloon tour, a spa morning, and every meal according to Mom's gluten allergy and my sister Lindsay's ever-changing food preferences. I even brought printouts, color-coded folders, digital backups, the works. If vacation planning was an Olympic sport, I'd have the gold. Mom, newly retired from her job as an elementary school principal, had always dreamed of Arizona. She once had a screensaver of red rock cliffs and saguaros on her ancient desktop. I wanted to give her something she never gave herself: rest, beauty, time with both her daughters without the stress of bills or classrooms or family drama. I thought if I curated it perfectly enough, we'd all leave better than we arrived. But something I've learned is perfection planning doesn't stop people from acting like themselves. Our first day should have felt like a dream. Instead, by the time we stepped into our suite, the hairline fractures in my vision already began to show. "You gave Mom the room with the view?" Lindsay asked, mid-eye roll, even before she had dropped her suitcase. "Yeah," I said, my tone overly bright. "It's her birthday trip." "But I told you I wanted a tub," she replied, eyes narrowed at the ensuite bath off Mom's room. "This one has a shower only." I looked at her. 25, long blonde curls, recently freelancing in photography, though I hadn't seen a portfolio in months. She had this way of speaking that made every inconvenience feel like a moral offense. "I can take the tub tomorrow," I offered. "We'll rotate if it matters." Mom was already unpacking, humming softly. She didn't step in. She rarely did when it came to Lindsay. It was fine. I was used to playing the flexible one. It's been that way since Dad left when I was 8. Mom worked 2 jobs, and I became the helper, while Lindsay was the one everyone worried about breaking. So I took the smallest room. I always do. That first evening, I suggested we hit the rooftop patio. Golden hour, amazing small plates. I'd picked the place just for the view. Mom smiled. Lindsay sighed. "It's too early to eat. Can't we push it?" "They only take reservations for sunset," I said. "And the patio books out weeks in advance." "Of course it does," Lindsay mumbled, like I was reciting a spell. Still, we went. For 15 perfect minutes, it worked. Sunlight kissing our glasses, Mom laughing at something I said. Then the appetizers came. "What even is this?" Lindsay poked at her squash blossom quesadilla. "It tastes healthy." I felt the sting, but I smiled. "We can get dessert after. I found this gelato bar downtown." But Lindsay was already scrolling. Mom's smile had faded. That was the moment I first felt it, my grip slipping, like I'd built a vacation out of sand and someone had just kicked the foundation, and the tide hadn't even come in yet.
The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than I wanted to on vacation, 6:30 a.m. to be exact. Arizona light was already seeping through the blinds, casting warm shadows across the terracotta tiles. I got dressed in quiet, grabbed my itinerary folder, and made my way to the concierge lounge. That day was supposed to be special. A slow breakfast by the pool, followed by the sunrise yoga class I'd booked for Mom, a short hike to the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, and then an open afternoon for relaxing or spa time. Balanced, intentional, not crammed, but also not aimless. By the time I came back up at 8:15, still, no one was awake. I knocked softly on Mom's door. Nothing. Lindsay's? Groaning. We said breakfast at 8:30, I reminded them when they finally emerged, both in oversized t-shirts and clearly not in any kind of rush. Lindsay blinked at me, mascara smudged from yesterday. "You sound like a camp counselor." Mom chuckled. "It's okay, honey. Maybe we just take it easy today." Easy. Like what I planned was hard? The buffet when we got there was mostly picked over. Our window seat had been given away. Still, I pasted on a smile, made Mom's plate with all her safe foods, poured Lindsay her coffee with 2 sugars and oat milk. The hike was next on the schedule, a short one, flat terrain. I'd triple-checked that it wasn't too hot yet. But before I could even bring it up, "We're thinking of heading into town instead," Lindsay announced, stabbing a melon cube with her fork. "Skylar wants to show us this cool vintage shop she found." Skylar. I didn't know Skylar existed until last night when Lindsay casually dropped, "Oh, my friend lives like 20 minutes from here." Skylar Moore, some lifestyle influencer she connected with on IG. Mom raised her eyebrow. "Is she joining us for anything?" "Maybe a drink or two. She knows all the non-touristy spots." And there it was again, that word, touristy. Like every reservation I'd researched was a bus stop for fanny-packed families with selfie sticks. "I already prepaid the hike shuttle," I said. "It's non-refundable." "We can hike another day," Mom said, gently, sipping her tea. "Don't stress." But I was stressing. Not because of the hike, because my plans were starting to slip like beads off a broken string. Still, I said nothing. Instead, we wandered downtown. I tried to enjoy it. The desert air was warm and dry, the buildings all sun-bleached adobe and cactus murals. Skylar met us outside a boutique called Moondust, wearing mirrored sunglasses and biker shorts. "This is so not your typical Scottsdale trip," she said, hugging Lindsay, barely nodding at me. Mom followed them through the racks like she was trying to keep up. I stood back. I watched them laugh over a sequin jumpsuit. She snapped a selfie of them together, captioned it something like, "Desert vibes only." I wasn't tagged. I wasn't asked. That night, dinner was at a steakhouse I'd reserved weeks ago for the ambiance. Dim lighting, big booths, live guitar. When we arrived, Skylar was already seated. She had invited herself, or maybe Lindsay had. No one asked me. And when I tried to make conversation, something about the resort's candlelit pool deck, Skylar interrupted with, "We're going to Ember Lounge after this, right?" Lindsay beamed. "They have bottle service. Skylar knows the bouncer." My hand tightened around my water glass. "It's Mom's birthday trip," I said, slowly. "I thought maybe a quieter night." "Oh, come on," she laughed. "She's not 80. And just like that, I felt myself vanish from the table. Again. Meticulous and responsible, yet often compelled to suppress her emotions, leading to accumulated tension, frustration, and disappointment. The next day, I forced myself to let go a little. No printed schedules, no color-coded maps, no whispered alarms. Mom wanted a slow morning, and Lindsay wanted whatever Skylar wanted. Fine. So, I got up early again, quietly slipped into sandals, and headed down to the pool deck.
I managed to snag one of the premium shaded cabanas, misters, privacy curtain, and a side view of the desert hills glowing pink under the morning sun. The kind of peace I imagined when I first started planning this trip. I ordered a fruit tray, Mom's favorite French roast, and Lindsay's oat milk latte, all set for delivery at 9:30. Thoughtful, not rigid. I told myself that. Back in the suite, everyone was still asleep. I sat on the balcony and watched the resort wake up. Housekeepers sweeping tiles, early birds swimming lazy laps, a couple in robes clinking mimosas. I tried to absorb that stillness. I really did. At 9:50, Lindsay emerged in a towel wrap, scrolling through her phone. "You're dressed?" she asked, like it was a surprise. "I set up a cabana," I said, voice casual. "Coffee's probably waiting." She blinked. "Oh, we were thinking of grabbing brunch with Skylar instead. There's this pop-up near Old Town." I looked at her. "You and Mom?" "Mom's down," she said. "She wants to see the art galleries." "Okay, but I already ordered everything. It's literally sitting there." Lindsay shrugged. "You can enjoy it, right?" She meant it. I know she did. But the way she said it stung. Down at the cabana, the fruit was already wilting, the coffee lukewarm. I sat alone under the shaded fabric while the couple from earlier laughed 2 chairs over, their hands laced together, their rhythm easy. I picked at a piece of mingo and watched a hummingbird hover at a prickly pear. For a moment, I tried to pretend it was enough, that this was still worth it, that they'd come around. But pretending gets heavy. They didn't return until past noon. Lindsay was wearing oversized sunglasses and a t-shirt with "Desert Darling" across the chest. Skylar wasn't far behind, holding a new bag that still had the boutique tag hanging. "Look what she got me," she beamed. Mom smiled, but her cheeks looked flushed. Too much sun, or just exhaustion. I stood. "We need to leave by 1 for the hot air balloon tour." Lindsay rolled her eyes. "You mean that thing where you get up at dawn and stare at the sand? It's an hour before sunset. The company does private group tours. I booked it in March." "Then why'd you book it without checking?" "Because I was trying to give you magic," I wanted to say. "Because I thought maybe we could float above the mess and remember we loved each other." "I'm going," I said, "with or without you." That made Mom shift in her seat. She looked between us. "Let's not argue." But it wasn't an argument. It was a declaration, one I didn't make easily. When we finally piled into the shuttle at 1:10, Lindsay was scrolling again. Skylar didn't come, probably bored. Mom stared out the window, saying nothing. I felt the weight of all my compromises stacking on top of one another like rocks in my chest. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't mad because they changed the plan. I was mad because they never saw me in it. We returned from the balloon ride just after dusk, the desert horizon still glowing orange and lavender behind us. The ride had been beautiful, silent, surreal. At one point, I caught Mom smiling as the balloon hovered above the red rock cliffs. Just her, the sky, and peace. I thought maybe, just maybe, the trip had finally turned a corner. I was wrong. Back in the suite, Lindsay was sprawled on the couch in a hotel robe, phone in one hand, a room service menu in the other. She glanced up. "Skylar says there's a rooftop screening of Dazed and Confused at Ember Lounge tonight. You in?" I hesitated. I thought tonight was dinner at Mesa Azul.
I made the reservation 3 months ago. Patio, live jazz, the chef's a James Beard nominee. Yeah, but Ember has espresso martinis and no cover charge tonight, and Skylar already has us on the list. Us. That word hit different. I turned to Mom. What do you think? She looked tired. Maybe a casual dinner is best tonight. The sting settled in my throat. It's not about being fancy, it's about doing the one thing I planned for today. Lindsay's expression hardened. You always make everything so serious. We're here to have fun. I turned toward the bedroom. I needed 5 minutes. Just 5. That's when I noticed the hotel notepad had been moved. My neatly stacked travel folder looked shifted. I picked it up, flipping through receipts, confirmations, and that's when I saw it. A new charge. $342. Hotel spa. My breath caught. I walked back out holding the receipt. Who went to the spa today? Lindsay didn't even look up. Oh yeah, Skylar and I got facials. My card wasn't working, so I used yours. I figured, you're covering the trip anyway. She said it like she was borrowing a sweater, like it wasn't my money, my name, my boundary. You used my card without asking? Jesus, Bree, chill. I was going to tell you. You act like we're draining your life savings. I stared at her. My hands were shaking, and I didn't even realize it until the folder slipped from my grip and hit the floor with a thud. Mom stepped between us. Lindsay, you should have asked. You said it was okay. You literally told me she wouldn't mind. I turned to Mom. Did you? She wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't think it would be a big deal. I felt something fracture. Not loud, not explosive, quiet, like a crack in glass you can't see until the light hits it just right. I have a budget, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I skipped my rent increase this year to afford this. I said no gifts at Christmas. I cooked at home for 2 months, and you both thought it was okay to spend hundreds behind my back? God, Bree, Lindsay huffed. Not everything is about money. You're so uptight. That was the trigger. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound, more like a short, sharp bark. You think this is about money? No, it's about respect. I planned this trip so Mom could feel special and you could feel included, but all I've done is clean up after your messes and chase your approval like a lost puppy. Lindsay stood. You're being dramatic. I'm being done. I turned, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the suite. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I needed to get away before I said something I couldn't take back. The resort's hallway was cool and dim. My sandals slapped against the tile. My chest ached like I'd just run a marathon. I made it to the elevator before the tears came. And when they did, they didn't stop.
I found myself on a lounge chair near the resort's adult pool, clutching a lukewarm bottle of water and staring at the moon's reflection rippling across the surface. The music from the main bar floated up faintly, muted bass, distant laughter. All the noise in my head felt louder than the world around me. I scrolled through my texts. No messages, no apology, nothing from Mom, nothing from Lindsay. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, letting the night air numb my skin and slow my breathing. At some point, I drifted off. When I woke, it was 1:43 a.m. The desert chill had crept in. I was still alone. Back upstairs, I opened the suite door quietly, unsure what I'd find. Inside, the lights were dimmed, Skylar was gone, Lindsay was curled up on the couch, asleep, the TV still playing some old reality show. Mom sat at the kitchen counter with a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. She looked up. "You okay?" I laughed softly. "No, but thanks for asking now."
She sighed. "Let's not do this tonight." "Why not? Every time we don't do it, it just stacks, and now the stack is so tall I can't even see around it." Mom set her glass down. "Lindsay's still figuring things out. She's been figuring things out for 10 years. Meanwhile, I figured out how to stretch my budget so I could surprise you with the trip of your dreams." Mom flinched at that. I know you've done everything. I should have said that." I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. "You didn't just not say it, you let her steal from me." Mom stood slowly. "Brianna, she didn't steal. She took my card without asking and spent hundreds of dollars. If that's not stealing, what is it?" Silence. Lindsay stirred on the couch. "Are you seriously still on this?" I turned. "I didn't say anything when you trashed my itinerary, when you skipped the hike, when you changed every plan I made. But this? You used me. And now you want to act like I'm the problem for being upset?" "Because you make everything about you," she snapped. "This was supposed to be Mom's trip, and instead it's your control freak spreadsheet fantasy." Mom stepped in. "Girls..." "No," I said. "Let her say it." Lindsay sat up, hair mussed, mascara smudged, still beautiful and still certain she was right. "You always do this. You buy people things and expect them to worship you for it." "God, Lindsay, I wanted us to connect, to sit still together, to laugh, to remember that we used to be sisters, not two strangers in matching Instagram photos." "You're so dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "No one asked you to play travel agent." "No," I said, voice breaking. "You just expected me to make it perfect, and when it wasn't your version of perfect, you tore it apart." That's when Mom said it. The sentence that would undo everything. "Brianna, maybe you should just leave." The words hung in the air, brittle and impossible. I stared at her. "You want me to leave?" She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. And in that pause, where a mother could have chosen her eldest daughter, or at least chosen compassion, I understood everything. "Fine," I said, whispering. "I'll leave." I walked into my room and shut the door. No one followed. Not right away.
The suite was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the mini fridge. I sat on the edge of my bed, blinking into the darkness, trying to understand what had just happened. I should have been furious. Instead, I felt hollow. I turned on the bedside lamp and opened the closet, pulling out my suitcase. I started folding clothes, one precise layer at a time. It gave me something to do with my hands, something to focus on besides the ache blooming across my ribs like a bruise. Jeans, blouses, my blue one piece that never even touched the pool. Toiletries went into their travel pouch, chargers, sandals, the travel folder with every confirmation I'd printed in bold, neat type. I paused there, my fingers resting on the pages. My handwriting, careful, considered, now looked almost foolish. Who was I trying to impress? Who was I trying to win? It was close to 3 a.m. when I wheeled my suitcase to the door. On the coffee table, I left a sheet from the hotel notepad with a list. Reservation codes, contacts, shuttle details. I included a line at the bottom. "Happy 60th, Mom. I hope this trip gives you what you need, even if it couldn't give us each other." I stood in the lobby at 3:45, watching the taxi pull up under the dim pink and orange glow of the resort's lights. The night manager, a young guy with sleepy eyes and a too-tight tie, offered to help with my bags. I shook my head. The car ride to the airport was silent, the highway stretching ahead in a blur of asphalt and desert shadows. I stared out the window, the events of the last 48 hours replaying like a badly edited montage. Each memory clipped and jagged. Lindsay's smirk, Mom's silence, the cracking sound of my own heart when she told me to leave.
At Sky Harbor International, I paid nearly triple the price for a last-minute one-way ticket to JFK, row 24F, middle seat. I didn't care. The flight was half empty. I stuffed my coat behind my head and curled against the window like a child. The plane rumbled up into the dark sky, the Arizona lights scattering below me like gold dust. Somewhere over the Midwest, the woman next to me passed me a tissue without a word. I hadn't even noticed I was crying again. I turned my phone to airplane mode. I didn't want to see the unread texts, or worse, the lack of them. For the first time in years, I didn't want to fix things. I didn't want to smooth it over, make a joke, book another dinner to patch it all. Something in me had snapped clean. Not in an angry way, more like a dry twig finally giving up after years of strain. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "You left because staying would have broken something permanent in you." And for once, I believed it. I touched the window pane, ice cold under my fingers. Below, the world rolled by in silent blue-gray shadows. I imagined them both waking up in the suite, seeing my empty bed, the note on the table, and I wondered, would they even be surprised? My apartment greeted me with that specific kind of stillness that only exists at 1 a.m. Lights off, air stale, everything untouched since I left 3 days earlier, like I was just going to the store and coming right back. I dropped my suitcase in the entryway and didn't even bother to unzip it. The bed felt foreign. I didn't change, just curled into the covers, still in my airport hoodie, and let the silence pull me under like a weighted blanket. When I woke up, it was noon. The sun was fighting through the curtains like it had something to prove. I made coffee automatically, hands shaking as I poured oat milk into a chipped mug. It felt like I was acting out someone else's life, going through the motions while my real life stayed stuck in a resort suite in Scottsdale. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. Mom, Lindsay, one from a Scottsdale area code I didn't recognize. Maybe the spa. Who knows? There were also text messages. The first ones from Lindsay were sharp. Nice way to storm out, real mature. You made everything about you, again. Mom's upset and it's your fault. Then, a few hours later, are you safe? Can you at least say that? We got turned away at the hot air balloon place. Guess you didn't think of that when you bailed. Moms were different. They started neutral. I hope you're home safe. Please call. I'm sorry if things got tense. Let's talk. Can we fix this, Brie? And then nothing. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the yelling. I couldn't reply. Not yet. I didn't trust myself not to explode or to cry or both. So I turned off notifications and tossed the phone on the couch. That's when the knock came. Jessica, my best friend since college, the one who always seemed to know when to show up uninvited with pad thai, wine, and that specific kind of no bullshit love that only comes from someone who's seen you ugly cry in a Target parking lot. I'm coming in, she said as I opened the door, holding 2 paper bags and a bottle of red under one arm. I figured by the lack of texts you were either spiraling or in prison. I laughed, a dry sound. Just spiraling. She handed me noodles and poured the wine like it was communion. I told her everything, from the moment Lindsay asked for the master suite to Mom's final sentence. I even pulled out the receipt from the spa. She stared at it like it was evidence in a murder trial. Brie? She said, chopsticks midair. This isn't a fight. This is a reckoning. I swallowed hard. I keep wondering if I overreacted, if I should have stayed, tried harder. Jessica shook her head. No, you've been trying your whole life. All they've done is expected. We sat there, legs crossed on the living room floor, half-empty cartons and a bottle of Pinot Noir between us, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel insane. Then I opened Instagram, and I saw Mom's post. A smiling photo of her and Lindsay at a poolside restaurant, one of the places I'd booked weeks ago. Beautiful birthday trip in Scottsdale with my girls, missing Bree, who had to leave early for work. Work? I said aloud, blinking. Jessica peered over my shoulder. She's rewriting the narrative? I nodded slowly. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and pressed down. Hard.
The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Linda, Mom's best friend since college, the one who sends birthday cards and occasionally comments on my photos with heart emojis and inspirational quotes. "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice crackled through my speaker. "Catherine called me in a bit of a panic, said she's been trying to reach you. Just wanted to check you're okay." I stared at the phone, trying to summon the strength to call her back. I didn't want more damage control, but something about Linda's voice, the calm, the concern that felt real, made me tap call back without fully thinking it through. She picked up on the first ring. "Brianna," she exhaled. "Thank God." "I'm fine. Back in New York." "I figured as much. Your mom said you left early for work, but I could tell there was more." I almost laughed. There's always more. So I told her, not every detail, but enough. About the planning, the money, the disrespect, the spa charge, the final moment. There was a long silence on the other end. "I love your mother dearly, but she's always been a little blind when it comes to balancing things between you and Lindsay." "Yeah," I said, picking at the frayed corner of the couch cushion. "I think I finally hit my limit." "I think you hit it years ago. You just didn't know you were allowed to walk away." I didn't reply, not because I disagreed, but because hearing someone else say it made it feel final. As we spoke, another call came in. "Linda." I let it ring. Then another, "Mom." This one I answered, partly out of instinct, partly out of exhaustion. "Hi. Oh, thank God. Brianna, She hesitated. "We came back early." My brain stalled. "What?" "We couldn't... things kept going wrong. We missed the hot air balloon. They said the booking was only valid with you present. The dinner reservations were under your email, and the restaurant couldn't find them at first." I pictured the envelope I left on the coffee table, printed confirmations, phone numbers, directions. I left instructions. "I know, but I didn't read them, not until too late." There was something crumbling in her voice now, not performative, not surface deep, something more like regret. "We were lost without you, literally, and otherwise." I let the silence stretch. I needed her to sit in it. Then she added, "We're back in the city. I know it's unexpected, but could we come by?" I hesitated. "I want to apologize. We both do. In person." I looked around my apartment. Empty wine glass, Jessica's forgotten sweater, the suitcase still unopened. Something in me whispered, "You don't owe them anything." But something else, the part that still remembered red rock skies and that one moment of Mom smiling on the balloon, whispered, "Maybe you deserve to be heard." "Fine," I said, "but I'm not smoothing anything over. We don't expect that. We're just ready to listen now." 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang, and I opened it to my mother and sister standing side by side, sunburned, sleep-deprived, and for the first time in my memory, unsure of themselves. We sat in a triangle in my tiny living room. The sunlight through the blinds striped everything: my thrifted coffee table, Mom's face, Lindsay's bare knees. No one spoke at first. I watched them like they were guests in someone else's house. Lindsay picking out a loose thread on her sleeve, Mom clasping her hands too tightly in her lap. "I didn't expect you to come," I said finally, breaking the silence. Mom nodded, slowly. We didn't expect to come back early." Lindsay gave a tight shrug. "After you left, it just sucked." Mom looked at her, then back at me. "We missed everything. Nothing worked. We couldn't even figure out the shuttle to the Everglades tour." "That's because it wasn't the Everglades, it was the Sonoran Desert Jeep ride," I corrected softly. Mom gave a sad laugh. "Exactly." I waited. "I told people you left early for work," she confessed. "I know. I saw the post." Her eyes widened a little. "I didn't want anyone to ask questions. I was embarrassed." I inhaled deeply. "You should have been embarrassed when you told me to leave." That hit hard. "I know," she said. "I said it because I didn't want a scene, but what I really did was choose silence over you." My throat tightened. I kept choosing Lindsay because I thought she needed more, because she's younger, because I was afraid she'd fall apart. Lindsay looked down. "And I let you carry everything," Mom added. "Plans, money, responsibility, blame." Tears welled in her eyes. "And then I made you the problem when you broke under it." Lindsay finally spoke. "I was jealous," she said, voice low, "of how together you seemed, of how Mom trusted you, of how you always know where the receipts are." I blinked. That was the last confession I'd expected. So I acted like none of it mattered, but it did. "Then why?" I asked. "Because if I admitted it mattered, then I'd have to admit that I couldn't give it to her. Only you could." I sat back, stunned by the clarity in her words, the way shame had disguised itself as defiance, the way her resentment had just been a mask for fear. "I hated how you made it look easy, like caring was your superpower." "It wasn't easy," I said. "I was dying inside." We were quiet again, but this silence felt different, like fresh soil after a thunderstorm. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "We're going to pay you back. It might take time, but we will." I shook my head. "That's not what I want." "But it's what you deserve." I looked at both of them. They weren't the same people who stood by the poolside 3 days ago, and I wasn't the same person who left it. I need boundaries, and if we're going to try again, we all need therapy. I already looked up someone. Her name's Carla. First session's next week. I smiled. Just a little. You beat me to it. And that's how it started. Healing. Not perfectly, not all at once, but with truth and accountability and an understanding that love without respect is just manipulation in a prettier dress. 6 months later, we were back together again, this time in a tiny lakeside cabin 3 hours north of the city. No flights, no hotels, no influencers, just us. The planning was collaborative this time. We agreed on the budget up front, split 3 ways. Lindsay volunteered to handle meals and actually showed up with groceries, recipes, and a printed checklist. Mom booked the cabin, I found a nearby trail and reserved a boat for sunset fishing. It wasn't Pinterest-worthy. The living room couch had a weird spring, there were ants in the kitchen, and our cell signal flickered in and out. But it felt real, manageable, honest. On our second night, after a dinner of grilled vegetables and foil-wrapped trout, we sat on the porch with mugs of tea and wrapped in mismatched flannel blankets. The sun dipped low, casting gold over the water. Fireflies blinked in the shadows. The air was still and smelled like pine and charcoal. Mom raised her mug. "To Brianna," she said, her voice warm, "for showing us that walking away isn't quitting. Sometimes it's just the clearest way to say, enough." Lindsay nodded. "And for letting us try again." I didn't say anything at first, just sat with it. The rare, delicate feeling of
being seen, not just useful. It wasn't a dramatic ending. There were no violins, but I could feel the shift in my bones. After everything, we were still a family. Not because of shared blood or last names, but because we chose to keep showing up. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn that love, bending, overperforming, making things magical so no one would notice how hurt I was underneath. But love isn't measured by how much you can hold without breaking. It's measured by who listens when you finally speak up. And that night, under the stars, I finally let the past exhale from my body like steam rising from the lake. Maybe next year we'll try a national park. Or maybe we'll come right back here. It doesn't really matter, because now I know I'm not the one holding it all together anymore. We're holding each other. If you've ever been the one who planned everything, paid for everything, and still felt like the villain, then you understand what this story was really about. I walked away from a family vacation because I realized that staying would have meant erasing myself. But the beauty of walking away is what it invites: reflection, growth, honesty. We all had to break our roles to rebuild something better. Today, our family isn't perfect, but it's finally real. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to set a boundary with someone you love? What happened when you did? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story touched something in you, please like, subscribe, or share it with someone who needs to hear you are allowed to leave. You are allowed to heal. And yes, you're allowed to come back with new terms.